March, Nissan plans to introduce the latest model of its Leaf all-electric car into South Africa towards the end of this year. A full charge of the latest model sold in Europe and has a range of 195 kilometers. Motorists who travel 20,000 kilometers a year, I guess that's the normal, would need to recharge their car for 8 hours every third day. Joining us now to discuss the viability of electric cars in South Africa is Karel Snyman. He's the Senior Manager for Green Transport at SANEDI. SANEDI?
Yeah, SANEDI is the South African National Energy Development Institute.
And we're in a country where there is a shortage of electricity, as we know in the metropolitan areas. Is this such a smart move, bringing electric cars in that need so much recharging?
Well, I'd like to correct you. We don't have a shortage of electricity. We have a capacity problem. We cannot generate enough at peak times. But we are sitting in one time zone. So overnight, there's lots of electricity available. I've calculated the number. You can support about 6 million cars, each driving 50 kilometers a day with off-night electricity, off-peak electricity at night. So there's lots of energy.
In the future, hopefully the capacity problem won't be a problem as well, Karel. There's two things that struck me about the electric car scenario recently. One was that in the United Kingdom there was a land speed record attempt last week, I think it was, and it wasn't some nuclear powered rocket car, it was an electric car. That's the first point. And the second point is that the New York authorities are phasing out petrol taxis and they're bringing in electric taxis, which of course lends itself beautifully because they can have all these stations, you can plug your taxi in at any time. It's a commuter thing at the moment though, isn't it? It's not for someone who wants to drive into the Karoo.
No, you're entirely correct. It's urban transport, urban mobility. You cannot go long distances, but it makes perfect sense for cities where you are a commuter and you use the vehicle as a commuting vehicle. We would also have to think about the size of the vehicle because really it doesn't make sense for you to travel between work and home carrying 1 ton or 2 tons of steel with you and just leaving it outside. So we need to redefine mobility actually. So we bring the car to a smaller size where it actually fits what it's transporting or moving, and then we will use even less electricity for that car.
Lindsay gave us some insights into what's happening in certain parts of the world. Maybe globally, is there a move towards electric cars? We see from the information from Nissan that they've sold 70,000 of these at the moment. Are they affordable, and are people buying them in greater numbers?
People are buying these vehicles. One of the best success stories is Tesla that we've seen happening in America, ex-South African by the way, Elon Musk. So people will buy electric vehicles. It will be slow in uptake because the vehicle is more expensive and does not offer the full utility that a normal petrol car that people are used to offer. So people will take electric vehicles, but electric vehicles will find their niche. And that niche is really the smaller urban vehicles. And of course, we can see other areas like mining vehicles, urban buses, big buses on a trunk route. Those sort of vehicles, those sort of niche markets is perfect for electric vehicles. But if you have to use your car to go from Joburg to Durban, that's not currently the market for electric vehicles.
Karel, people are very snobbish about their cars. You know, the popularity of a program like Top Gear, for example, tells you that people are absolutely obsessed with the car, these petrol heads. Will there be electric heads in the future? In other words, will there be cars that are powered by electricity that have the same performance as, carbon-based cars at the moment?
Well, you're sitting with the electric head in front of you. The electric car that I drive has got a much better performance than any petrol car I've ever driven. I can accelerate, well, let me start here. Under my bonnet, I've got 150 kilowatts of raw power and 220 Newton meters of torque. So I can just floor my accelerated pedal and without changing gears, move up to 100 kilometers an hour in something like 8 seconds. Now that is a very good performance.
What car is this?
Is
this the Leaf?
This is the second one. No, with the courtesy of BMW, I'm driving a Mini E at the moment. But I had a vehicle that we converted while I was working at Eskom, and that was a Corsa light delivery vehicle, a Corsa Bakkie. And it's a similar system that they use in the Mini, but an older system, the Generation 1. And that also had 150 kilowatts.
So there's no performance problems with these electric cars? You say in South Africa, as long as we only charge them up when we're sleeping, there will be no problem in absorbing the power.
No, that's...
Is it a cost issue?
The cost issue, no. Currently, I consume about 12 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. Now, do you know what you pay for electricity?
It's about R1.
A little bit more than R1, exactly. So that's about, what is it? 12, 13 rands a 100 kilometers. If you fill up with petrol nowadays, you pay 13 rands per litre. If you get 10 kilometers, if you consume 10 litres per 100 kilometers, you pay 130 rands. So compare that cost. It's much cheaper to drive electric.
Is that for real, though?
That is for real. I've done it.
And your car that BMW have let you borrow, what would it cost to purchase?
Well, you see, the electric vehicles are currently more expensive. That is because the battery is the most expensive component, and that is still in its infancy shoes. So the numbers of batteries being sold out there is low. And with economies of scale, of course, that will improve.
But the number, how much more is it to buy an electric car than a petrol or a diesel?
An electric car like the Mini E would cost you anything between 250 and 350,000 rands. So that's quite expensive.
And the petrol version?
The petrol version, about 200,000 rands.
Carol, the obvious thing here is when you talk about the cost between petrol and electricity is the taxi service in South Africa. The taxis that we see whizzing around at the moment, unfortunately, of course, they've just been converted. A lot of these quite smart-looking new taxis are around, so it's going to take a while before we can convince the taxi industry to convert. But this is a natural, because this will probably not only just cap fares in the taxi industry, but it actually may even bring them down in the future.
It could. The potential is there. And if the people that sell the taxi industry or the owner of the vehicle don't include the battery price in the price of the vehicle, but lease the battery to people, that'll bring the cost down further. And they need to do that because they need to back the technology they put into the battery. The battery would last you nowadays about 10 years. So that's about the life of the vehicle. So you can easily do that. But yeah, the taxi industry is a good candidate, and taxis that stay on specific routes and do only small number of routes in the peak in the morning and the peak in the afternoon is ideal for electric, because they can also in the middle of the day recharge their vehicles. In that time they can use solar energy. Currently half the energy that I use in my commuter vehicle comes from the sun. We have a solar carport where we put electricity back into the grid. We use the grid as a battery, and then we take that out again when I recharge my vehicle at home.
Carl, it's a compelling story, but it's a story that's been around for a while and has got investors on the hop. Charlie Munger, the vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway, the right hand of Warren Buffett, said there was a firm in Hong Kong called BYD. Do you know BYD?
Yes.
Electric car maker.
It belongs to them.
Well, he said this is the best thing since sliced bread. The share price, unfortunately, is down by 80% since 2006, as they have never been able to get things going. When do you think it's going to be an opportunity? I'm trying to come from an investment angle here. When do you think that the promise is going to translate into cash?
Well, there are a number of things that we need to consider there. The first thing is they came in new at this current sort of increase in interest in electric vehicles. There were various increases before, and unfortunately they have not learned from those previous peaks of interest in electric vehicles, and that coincides with a peak in the share in the price of oil. And the thing is, the car is the most difficult thing to demonstrate electric transport in, because people have different ideas about cars. People buy cars not based on techno-economic reasons, but because they like cars, because they like the features of the cars, because the car props up their ego, or whatever the case they buy cars for. So they don't buy cars based on what the electric vehicle offers them. If energy efficiency, low cost, longer life. I mean, the electric motors, they would last, I don't know, 1 million kilometers? We don't know. They keep on working. The first Corsa bucket that we converted in Eskom is now about 17 years old, and the vehicle hasn't lost an inch of performance and had no services. But anyway, so coming back to that, in terms of the share price, maybe the promises made and the expectations were a little bit too high from electric vehicles. The car does not deliver the full utility of a petrol car. Can't go 600 kilometers. But that's the wrong market. We need to look at the urban commuter market and target those niche markets where electric vehicles can already, with today's technology, outperform the alternative technology or the older technologies.
Carl,